Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. We'll have little mini camp nuggets for you from every team that's going through mini camps right now. Check that out on ESPN.com. You can go to the Commanders page, go to ESPN.com. You'll have it all up there. But I have a couple hundred words on what some highlights, a highlight and a key figure to talk about today with the Commanders. So anyways, look for that. Also, for you gold members, don't forget this Thursday, June 13th, 7:00 Eastern time, with Washington analyst, former Redskin tight end, Logan Paulson. It's a private Zoom session for the gold members. If you want to become a gold member to join in, go to the Empire Media YouTube page. You do it on your laptop, see the word join, click on there and find the gold membership. Anyways, so looking forward to that. Gold members, join me there Thursday, 7:00 Eastern time. So today it's all about the minicamp, folks. It's a 3-day minicamp. And I think, in the past, a lot of times that third day gets canceled for good attendance, whatever. Not going to be canceled this time. And I kind of like that. And I like that a lot. And because of the reasons for it, this staff has given this group breaks already. Like they had last week after Memorial Day, the veterans were off. The rookies stayed here. They had a bunch of activities, but the veterans are off. So giving them some breaks throughout this period has kind of helped break it up. And I think it's kept these guys fresh and it's led to a lot of energy all the time. I'm telling you, it's just different. It's just different. But anyways, that's partly why, even though they've had 100% attendance, they're going to keep that third day because they've given them some breaks, but also another reason. One, they were 4-13 last year. There's a lot of work to be done. And the one thing you'll notice about Dan Quinn, while he is considered a player's coach, guys like him, people in the past love playing for him, but he's right now, they're in a no nonsense mode and get the work done. They need to get the work done because you have this day. They're not in position to right now give up a day just because they've had good attendance. They need to get this work done. And will one day make a huge difference? No, but it's a mindset. And, it's funny because last year, the third day, they actually did have a third day, but it was really kind of more of a glorified walkthrough. So we weren't able to watch it, but the defense pretty much did just go through a walkthrough. The offense, they went through a hard practice. The offensive guys weren't too happy about that because they're watching the defense do it, but they were at different stages of their situations. It was a new offense versus a defense they've been in for several years. Now, having said that, they all needed a lot more work. But the point is, they did have it last year, but it was just a difference. They also needed to keep it because they'd lost an OTA day, but it really was just a glorified walkthrough for half of them. But this time it's going to be a practice, might be a little bit shorter. But regardless, you should like the reason why they're doing it. The other thing, we asked Dan Quinn about Johnny Newton today, their defensive tackle who underwent the foot surgery on his left foot after having the same surgery on his right foot after the college season. So a little bit of an update. I saw Newton walking around with the walking boots still on today after practice, but according to Dan Quinn, he's hit all his markers so far in terms of his recovery. Doesn't know what this is going to mean for training camp. And that's probably going to be something that we learn right before training camp, whether or not he's going to be put on the PUP list to open or whether or not he'll be available. So we just don't know yet. But so far, it's been good progress, but it's still too early to say what this means for the start of training camp. So anyway, that's a little update there. So today, it's going to be a lot about Jaden Daniels again. A couple guys, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin. But I'm starting with Daniels because I'm telling you, man, there's just something different when people talk about him compared to pretty much any other quarterback that I've covered. And there are a lot, there are a lot of guys have gotten some praise for various things, but I think for a guy at Daniel's stage, it's just different. Anyways, so Dan Quinn was talking about how he's able to get out of a bad play, and part of that comes from the prep work. Like, now getting out of bad play doesn't just mean with your legs. It means identifying something and working to a better play. And that's one of the things that he talked about. One thing they also talked about was his first pitch that he threw at the Nats game a couple of days ago. Not the greatest pitch for, he hit it. I think he hit it in the batter's box. And again, it was not a strike for sure. I think the good thing here is they can rib him about it. And Quinn was asked, like, if they've shown video of that in meetings, he said not yet. At some point that will come up. The good thing here is Daniels will enjoy that. Like, he's just a guy that has fun out there. And I think that's something that's going to become contagious. He is not a loud, brash personality. He's just a young man who's out there having fun and enjoying what he's doing. So I go back to some of the pre-draft conversation that was so ridiculous. Anyways, but I think you're hearing this echoed from player. I mean, I'm talking to people just privately, like, just to get a better feel for them. And they're all saying the same things, whether it's publicly or privately. Terry McLaurin talked about him today, and I have not seen Terry rave about a young quarterback. I mean, he's been with a number of quarterbacks now. He's been with some older guys. He's been with some younger guys. He has not raved about a guy like this, and he was talking about some younger guys, but I haven't heard him rave about any quarterback like this since he's been here. And let me tell you some of what he said. He talked a lot about it. He said, he talks about no anxiousness in his game, likes the demeanor, always smiling, cool with everybody, guys gravitating to him. He also said, I think he's going to be a good player because I don't think I've had a young quarterback that really has come in and within the first week, he's like, hey, can we get this rep, with this rep after practice? So it's exciting for me because that opens the door where they have a lot on their plate, but at the same time, there's an open door of communication. He's not afraid to work on before or after practices. So it makes the growth part a lot quicker. He's very talented. He's extremely humble as well. So Terry went on with a bigger quote, but that I think should tell you a lot right there. The way, and again, when guys are talking about him, you're not just listening to the words, it's the body language, because the body language, there have been times in the past where guys have talked about a quarterback or a player, or a coach has talked about him, and you can see the body language. You can hear what they're saying. The words sound good, but the body language doesn't support the words. In other words, like when you're watching guys now, there's an enthusiasm in their eyes, in their face. You can see it when they're talking about him and what they're trying to say. So I know this is going to get some of you guys really excited, and to be honest, it should. Now, where it goes from here, I don't know. I just know that as of June 11th, this is what they're saying, and this is how they're feeling. Now, the next step is to see it in training camp, and then see it in the games, and see it in the season, and see it year after year. That's what you want to see. I get that. And I hear from people who say, like, I don't want to hear this anymore. I just want to see it. Oh, that's great. I'm with you. But I'm just telling you that it's been different with him, the feedback that you're getting. Now, again, you've got to see it manifest itself on the field, and we'll get to some of that in a minute. And then even Nick Allegretti talked today, and he was talking about just how, when he sees Daniels basically talking to anybody in the building, and how he's another guy who said, I get here at 6:30, he's already here. And he even joked, he goes, I'm kind of dragging in, and you'll see Daniels coming out of the locker room and just kind of full of energy and all that. That stuff, that guys do gravitate to that stuff. So that part is real. Where the field stuff goes, time will tell, but the other stuff is real. So, like I've always said, what it does is it gives him a chance to maximize his ability. And, you always, like, there are definitely things he has to learn. Like, there is some red zone stuff that you need to see how he progresses there, because the situational football matters to any quarterback. How, that's been one of the, I would say, hiccups, but that's an area certainly that you see maybe sometimes not as much success, I would say, and a little bit more hesitation or indecision, because down there things tighten up. So, but what we haven't seen too is, how do you incorporate his legs into the offense down there? And the running game when you're doing it. So there's more to learn there that can help him, but that's always a tough area for any young quarterback to learn because it becomes so condensed. Anyways, this is how guys are talking about him early, and it's been across the board, and just with what guys see. And Terry McLaurin said that he even tells guys, hey, you basically tells the receivers, you got to keep your head in a swivel when you're running those cross routes. And it's funny because yesterday I was talking to somebody with the team who basically said that one of the best throws he's seen him make was an anticipation throw over the middle. And that's something that really opens eyes. And for a receiver, that's what they want to see. It's like sometimes guys want to see a guy wide open before he's going to throw it. But in some of these, he's been thrown with anticipation. And that comes from the work that you put into it, because and then you have to trust, not just know, because some quarterbacks know it, but they don't trust it. You've got to be able to trust it, because if you're going to throw with anticipation, man, sometimes you're going to throw picks. I remember a game Peyton Manning had here where he was a surgeon, but he also threw 2 picks because he's thrown with such a high level of anticipation that if you're just expecting this guy to win and he doesn't, there's going to be a pick. So, but you want to see the anticipatory throws because those make a difference big time. Will Jaden Daniels climb to the top of the NFC East? Will the Commanders zip past the competition? We'll have to wait until the season starts to see, but you can get a head start on the competition this summer at the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring. Named the #1 aerial adventure park in North America by USA Today, the country's largest ropes course and zipline park is now open 7 days a week. Located in the heart of Montgomery County, Maryland, the Adventure Park offers climbing, ziplining, axe throwing, food, and more. Experience adventure day or night with your family, or leave the kids at home for one of the exclusive Keep It Lit adult-only events. These summer date nights are perfect, featuring glow lights, music, fire pits, and endless adventure. With challenges anywhere from beginner to expert, there is something for all skill levels. Not looking to scramble through the trees? Keep your feet planted in the pocket and throw a perfect spiral at axe throwing. You can throw at traditional targets or play any number of interactive games. You can even upload your own image. Anytime you're thinking about reaching new heights, make sure you know before you go. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is the only ACCT accredited park in Maryland or Virginia. So there you have it, folks. The best climbing, ziplining, and axe throwing in the country right here in the DMV. Reserve your adventure today at www.theadventurepark.com/Kime. The other thing that you see with Daniels is that he and Sam Hartman seem to get along very, very well. And it's funny because I posted a video of Sam Hartman on the site or on social media, and then I think we even had it on here. It's, honest to God, some people got upset with it, and it's shocking to me because it was a nondescript video just saying, hey, here's another quarterback in camp. It was not implying anything, and people seem to get a little bit upset. It was kind of humorous and a reminder just how people view quarterbacks sometimes with teams. But what it is like they get along really well. And what you have to wonder for Hartman is, can he develop into a quality backup down the road? No way of knowing. Like, see him in a game. And right now he's not getting a lot of us. But the bottom line of going through all this is those two get along very well. And you see it in those, one thing that I think McLaurin was talking about was just like all the little competitions and how different it is in that regard in the building. And you see it with these quarterbacks. Like before practice, like they'll do these drills where they're thrown at this net and there's 3 squares in the net. You've probably seen it. And there was one time where Hartman got a couple in. You're trying to get in that middle one, right? And Hartman got a couple in there, and it was harder for Daniels. Daniels was, I wouldn't say struggling. He just wasn't hitting everyone in there. He wasn't getting them all in there. And one time he did, and Hartman kind of joked with him saying, hey, thanks for showing up. And then this one, there was another one where Daniels gets it in there again. And then he goes over to Hartman, kind of does a little, finger wag in front of his face, a little joking around. And then Hartman goes, they all 4 of them are going, but then Hartman goes, he goes last. And he gets it. You hear Jane saying, no pressure, no pressure. And then he gets it in there and he goes over, and Hartman kind of jogs over to Daniels and kind of bounces up into him. And meanwhile, you see Daniels just a big smile. That's how this is. And that's all good stuff. So, but again, it starts with like the guy who's in that level can set a tone for that room. And Marcus Mariota, Driscoll, those guys obviously have a say in how that room is. And it sounds like it's a good room. But if Daniels has a different personality, things could go a different way. He doesn't. And that's why I think you see those guys having fun out there. And guys, I'm telling you, man, they like going to work here. So see where it goes. But what I know is right now they like coming to work. And when it's all new like that, that makes a difference. But I also think there's something different here. Anyways, so that was going on, and that's always a fun thing to watch. One thing before I get into some practice stuff, a couple notes. Did see Emmanuel Forbes and Jahan Dotson working on catching punts today, and just like working on catching punts, going up and taking, cutting after about 5 yards, doing that during special teams. And this is why some guys last a long time. So I'm watching Zach Ertz during the special teams drill. So you got on one side, you got guys working on the new kickoff drills. You have a bunch of guys working on kick returns. I talked about them last week, but you do have like that. So that's what's going on. You have the quarterbacks working over here. Meanwhile, you got Zach Ertz, just, he's running a couple routes with cones, and the assistant coach will be just throwing passes to him. And then later he's working with tight ends coach, going over just some releases at the line and just walking over, and he's receptive to the coaching he's receiving, because you see the coach talking to him, and you see Ertz putting into play what, the way he needs to step, the way he needs to use his arm, his hands. And that's why a guy lasts as long as he does, because you're willing to do that. And when we talk about leadership, that's also leadership, because if you're another player out there, you're watching that, that's another form of leadership. You're seeing what this guy's done to stay in the league this long. And it's why he could be a productive player for Washington this year, because, just going over all these details still matters to him. And that's, again, you get a snapshot into why a guy lasts as long as he does. And I always remember talking to Vernon Davis about this, like, the secret's there. Like, it's the work you put into it. And guys that figure it out early tend to have double-digit year-long careers. So anyways, that's another thing. Today there was a lot of, it's funny because one of the things that you notice out here too is they do a lot of no huddle and a lot of hurry up. And there's an offshoot of that. And there's a couple of things I want to talk about with this in terms of communication. But when you see the no huddle, what you see is a defense that's forced to communicate, because you need to know right now what is going on. What do you what coverage you in? What are you seeing? Whatever. But there's a lot of communication, and I do not remember seeing this before, right? So like that's a very good thing. And so it's one of the things, like, they're going to run no huddle. They're going to run some hurry up, right? But the benefit for the defense is you learn how to communicate at a faster level and at a higher level. And it's funny because you don't see a lot of screw ups. I mean, they're going to mess up and you guys are going to get the wrong spot and all that. But even on offense, like I was talking about this with Craig Hoffman on his Take Command podcast on his radio show, we were talking about how many guys get filtered through on defense, and they pair anybody with anybody. You're seeing Bobby Wagner with guys who are going to be cut, et cetera. Like they really cycle guys through. There's a couple of reasons for that. And I talked about this before, but one of them is you want to see how guys react when they're around better players. Like who might be a young guy that steps up in those situations. But the other thing to me is when you're getting new guys in there, you have to communicate even better and even more. So I think the offshoot of how they're doing things should lead to better communication. It should. Now, again, I always say, let's see it during the season, but when you're out there, you're hearing the communication in a way that you haven't heard that the last few years for sure. So that's obviously a very good thing. And they were working on the screen game today, set it up pretty well. And there were a couple of times they get the defense with a couple of really nice set up screens that were, again, set up very well, and just good blocking out front, guys going. I like how they used Benson. And it's funny because I've watched some video of Kyle Juszczyk and just like the versatility that he adds and how that can enhances the 49ers offense. Now, not comparing him to him, but that was a guy that Adam Peters brought up, that there are some traits that you might see and some of that versatility that you, for the Commanders, hope that is there. And so that could be like, I see him running a slant route on one thing, but on another time they had set up a screen. I think Mariota was quarterback on this one, but there's a swing pass to the left to Jeremy McNichol, who, by the way, is a guy that I think has a real shot of making this roster as a running back. But so he catches the ball on the left, but you have Cinedas out front as a lead blocker and does a nice job. So he cuts up field with what would have been a good gain, but it's because of his ability to block in space, which is not something that all tight ends can do. But that's, so you see some of that versatility. Can they tap into that and when? But that would be a big help if he becomes, obviously if he became like a Juszczyk, that's a huge help. But if he can become a versatile player for them, even if it's a poor man's Juszczyk, that would help as well. And so got to see more. I get it, but that's something you did see at times today. And so, but anyways, there were a couple plays by Daniels that I wanted to point out too, that both of them were to De'Ami Brown and both show a couple of things that he can do. So on one of them, he looks to the left and looks left, nothing, middle, nothing, has a hole to escape the pocket because it's starting to collapse a little bit. So he runs out to the right, but he keeps his eyes up. And you got De'Ami Brown on the left, like on that side, cuts back to the middle of the field and just a perfect throw back to him. It's not a dangerous throw, but a perfect throw back to him, hits him in stride. So like he's throwing across his body. You've got to get those hips turned around to make an accurate throw there. He gave Brown a chance to run with the ball after the catch. And by the way, they do work a decent amount on reacting off the scrambles. And I think I've told you that before, but anyways, so then the second one, now this play may have resulted in a sack because the pocket certainly starts to collapse. Daniels, though, stick with me here because this is a spring and these are the plays. It's funny because sometimes these are the plays that get big applause during training camp practices. And sometimes you say like, that's great, except it would have been a sack. Now, in this case, I think it would have been. However, because it's Jaden Daniels, who the heck knows? He may have tried to get out of there earlier, but the bottom line is, forget that part. He gets out of the pocket, runs to his right, and just throws a strike down the field, down the right side to De'Ami Brown, who it's like a 45-yard gain and makes a one-handed grab down there. That was a big-time play. And it was a great throw, and it was a great catch. And so those are two in a row there now. So those are things that he can do, and you see that. And again, he's not perfect out there. There were incompletions, but what you don't see are the errant throws that or the wild misses that we've seen at times in the past from some quarterbacks, not all, but from some. And what we also haven't seen a lot of is well, I did show you there some examples with the legs, but how that is going to incorporate into the run game. You saw a little bit today where there were a few zone reads, it looked like, so some of that, but that's down the road. A highlight play though was Marcus Mariota. And he had one where pocket was collapsing, spins out, rolls to his left and throws down the left side, down the sidelines to Davion Davis, who catches it and tippy-toes his feet in bounds, but just a really nice throw by Mariota. Mariota's kind of funny because at times he looks pretty good. I mean, he's a veteran quarterback. He was a high pick for a reason. And then other times he just has some bad misses. It might be on a screen thrown at a guy's feet, makes it tough to catch or tough to run. And, you see that sometimes too. There's that inconsistency with some of his throws that certainly exists. Also watch Jamin Davis. Now, again, no pads on, so you take it for what it's worth, but watching him and how they're trying to use him when there were times where and these are hurry up, pass situations, obviously. So it's going to be it's a pass rush situation. So he'd be on the edge, sometimes in a 2-point stance, a couple times in a 3-point stance. And, just watching to see how he does there. Certainly a work in progress because it's new for him. So he's going to have to learn how to attack guys, how to attack with his hands, when to attack, how to convert speed to power, vice versa. And so I think there's, I'm not going to sit here and make some pronouncement on how he looked because it's new for him. So you want to see how does he progress. So I saw something today. Let's see what it is tomorrow, the next day, but then also early in training camp, because that's when you're going to want to see him. When you get to see him doing a lot more one-on-one pass rush work, et cetera. So there were a couple of times where he got around a guy. He's not going against starters in those situations. Just note that. And there was one time, I think Mason Brooks was able to stop him. Another time against, who was it? Ngugu. No, Ngugu. Let's see. It's David Ngugu. Did a good job stopping Davis. But again, I think what he has to learn is how to attack a guy, where to attack him on the body, how to set him up, maybe get some, a little bit more quickness. But I think what he can do is turn the corner. And I saw him do that now. I saw him do it against Braden Daniels, but he did turn the corner and showed good flexibility to do that on that one. He likes to try that spin move. Saw it try to do that a couple of times. Saw him go against Ricky Stromberg. There's one time where he started off as standing up in a 2-point stance on the edge and shifts inside to a 3-point stance going against Stromberg, who was a guard at that play. So just using him all over the place. And again, I'm not sitting there drawing any conclusions on his work because it's early for him. So see where he improves. But I do think there's a lot of room for improvement, but you want to see how he starts to translate when there are pads on. So anyways, and then one of the other things is, it's the other thing, because I talk a lot about Jaden, obviously, but Bobby Wagner is also a guy that gets people excited here. And I'm talking about teammates. Like every time they talk about him, it's, again, eyes light up, and like they always reference Canton, Hall of Fame, Canton, Hall of Fame, Hall of Famer, Canton, going to Canton. Terry McLaurin did that today as well. Grady did it. They all kind of do it, but it's funny because they bring up McLaurin. I don't think I've seen him that excited about where a team is at that he's been on. And I think there's just some guys that just feel such a breath of fresh air for them that it's been really energizing. And I think McLaurin is in that group for sure. Like, he talked to us for over 20 minutes today, which is, it's a lot for a spring practice, but he could have kept going longer. And it's because he kept giving long answers. And Terry's been our good guy award winner for 4 years for a reason. Really insightful, but there's also a level of energy and excitement that I think comes with him right now. And I think that's what you're seeing. And I think it's not just Jaden Daniels. It's all of it, right? But that's something that you're seeing from him. And I'll probably get into that in another podcast, some of the stuff I'm talking about, because I do think it's worth noting just how his body language was, just how excited he was talking about all this stuff. And then people talking about him. And I think that's one thing that Dan Quinn was asked about him today. He talked about his professionalism, and he shared it. And he shared an example in front of the team. And it was, McLaurin always works on something every offseason, right? This time he wants to get more yards after the catch. The yak last year was terrible for all of them. I think there are a variety of reasons for that. But what Quinn pointed out, and he showed an example of this, he's watching McLaurin go through some of his stuff after the catch, going through some deliberate movements that set up maybe getting past a guy after the catch. It's all designed to do that. And he can be very intentional and deliberate with what he's doing. And I think it's, as he pointed out, as Quinn told the team, is like, no matter how good you are, you can still always get better and work on something. And that's why I pointed that out. And Allegretti pointed out, he was asked about McLaurin because he came into the podium right after McLaurin talked. And, it's funny because, like, you can tell there's, as McLaurin is going up the stairs and Allegretti is at the podium, he kind of joked with McLaurin about finally getting done. And then McLaurin just kind of smiled and yelled to him, like, hey, he's one of the funniest guys in the team and all that, blah, blah. But it's just like, they're new, like Allegretti's new. So they clearly have done some good team bonding stuff here. And that's one thing that some of these guys have talked about. The O-linemen for sure have done a lot of that, going out to eat a lot every week. It sounds like there's some O-line dinners. Anyway, the one thing that stood out to Allegretti about McLaurin was that I don't know if it was in a group offensive meeting or something, and they were talking about various things. He said the first thing that McLaurin mentioned was blocking for a receiver, was the blocking. And I've told you guys before, like, I think the receiver blocking has to be more consistent this year, because that's how you get your really good runs as a running back, right? If the receivers are blocking, typically you're going to get some good runs. Like, you watch a Kyle Shanahan offense, his receivers always block their asses off. And so I think that needs to take place here. I think they need to be more consistent, but the fact like that really stood out to Allegretti, that was the first thing that McLaurin talked about. So anyway, it's a long report here. Oh, by the way, they did have some kickers in for workouts. Today they had a handful in. There was one guy was out at practice as well today during practice. It was Lucas Haversick. They also had Jake Bates, who kicked in the UFL. I told you about him before, like as a guy to keep an eye on because a lot of teams have been interested in him. He was scheduled to visit on Tuesday as well. So they are looking at other guys. And I do believe like you're going to have, it wouldn't shock me if there's a different kicker to open training camp just because they had a bunch, they had several in today. So they're going to keep looking for that. And you have to, you have to. So anyway, just want to toss that in there, but that's it, folks. That's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed the wrap up. I'll be back with another wrap up after Wednesday's practice. So I'll talk to you next time.